Everyone, welcome to my Wednesday Facebook Live. And today I wanted to bring in something that we talked about in our group last night. So I spend a lot of my group sessions and my therapy sessions, coaching sessions, talking to people about how to say difficult things to other people, how to have the hard conversations. So it's often that I'm giving an example of like, okay, you could say it like this, or this is something that you might want to consider saying that might help yourself be more present or be more who you are or have boundaries. So there's a lot of interpersonal things that happen in our conversations with people that we need to sort out. So therapy, coaching, my groups, that's a place that a lot of folks do it. So I wanted to tell you something that happened in our group last night. People have been asking about codependency. How do I know I'm in a codependent relationship? How do I heal from codependency? And I think that every relationship has aspects of codependency in it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That we all need to depend on each other in relationships. And that's a lot of why we're together, is to get some of our needs met, to help each other, to collaborate, to feel connected. And then sometimes that goes a little too far. So there are often generational patterns, ways that we behave in families that are passed on that aren't healthy. And we could use a magnifying glass and look at in each family what are some of the unhealthy ways of interacting that have occurred, and if there's things in your relationship or relationships now that you see are coming from your family where you grew up that you want to change. And one of those things is being triggered. And sometimes we're triggered by the way we were treated or the way our needs weren't met when we were growing up. So it's really important, if you're in a relationship, a close friendship or a close partnership, and you're triggered, that you can examine why you're triggered, and you can talk about it at some point with the other person so they can really understand when you're reacting to something, why you have such a strong reaction. And then that's one way that you can work on it with the other person. You can let them into that. So in my group last night, what we talked about was, how do I ask for my needs to be met without feeling like I'm a bad person, without feeling like I'm confronting somebody, or without feeling demanding. And so typically when we have to ask for something and we want to ask for something strongly and we don't ask for it, we have a reaction from that. And so I want you to notice some of the reactions you might have if you have an unmet need or something that you need to say out loud and you don't say it, how you might start acting. So here's one of the examples that was given last night, and actually it came from me because I was trying to help people find a way of talking about this. So the example that I gave was that on Sunday night, some people showed up at my house, and it was great for a while. I was happy that people were there, but I didn't really expect or plan to spend the evening that way. So for 1 hour or so, it was great. I had a great time, but then it was kind of time to close up shop. And instead of doing that, I let the conversation keep going without me, and I sort of stepped away and started to do some work on my phone and get myself organized with my Sunday night. And then I realized that this resentment was growing with me, that I had kind of been finished with what we were doing socially and I was ready to move on. So instead of just sitting there with that resentment, I went out and said, hey, I'm kind of done. I need to do other stuff now. I wasn't planning to have this social thing tonight. So, kind of like the party's over. You can wrap it up. And so I had to go back a second time to remind, but I really felt like if they wanted to continue and they said, hey, can you just let us hang here for a little bit longer? Then I would have said fine, and I would have left and gone and done my own thing. But I was kind of in between being able to, leave that activity and go to my next one. I was kind of like waiting for that transition. So eventually it resolved, and it had So I asked for what I needed, I got what I needed, and it wasn't challenging at all for me, because what was more challenging for me was sitting with feelings of resentment. And that's kind of where I landed. So the thought is, if you need to ask for something, and it's really, really hard to do that because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, you don't want to seem bossy and controlling, that you might have to think about how to say that to another person. You might have to think about it. But to notice, if you don't say it, how does that make you behave? And this is part of codependency. Sometimes we stay in relationships not speaking about what our needs are, and we get really resentful. So you might want to notice that you might get fiercely independent, like, I don't need any help, I'm just going to do this on my own. You might get mean or mad, and that's the way you're setting the boundary. You might just walk away and leave without explanation. So to notice, if you don't speak your mind, then what do you do instead? And the healthier thing, the independent, being able to speak your mind thing, is to ask for what you need. And also, that's a way of setting a boundary. So you can actually show up more like yourself. You can be more yourself in that. So codependency in relationships makes us behave like we have to over function for somebody else. And sometimes that's all in our mind. We're just ruminating about it, that we can't really talk about what our problems are or what we're concerned about. Like, for example, my example from last night, like, I have a lot to do tonight. I wasn't planning on socializing, so I can only like hang out with this situation for another few minutes. So that's me asking for what I need, and it's also not keeping it a secret of that's what my motivation is. In a codependent relationship, one that's overly codependent, that has some dysfunction in it, that you're not able to function well in it. Dysfunction sometimes is a word people don't like. You're not able to fully function in it. You're not able to truly be yourself. There is a tendency, and see if you can recognize any of these signs. And if you can, make a comment or two so that we can share this together. You might need to be needed more. You might also feel like you have to take care of somebody, and that the rescuing or helping somebody feels your need more than taking care or having your needs met. You might enable somebody's behavior that you feel like isn't really healthy behavior, but you just kind of let it go. And what's the other one that I wanted to tell you about? You might neglect yourself, and you might neglect your own responsibilities. So there's 4 signs of codependency that you can kind of try on for size and see if you're doing that in any of your relationships. So, it's not so much to analyze and make yourself feel bad, but to give yourself permission to just look at how you're interacting in your relationships that you have. Are you feeling really healthy and functional and like you can be completely yourself? Or do you feel like you can't really say what's really going on for you with other people? You don't have the words for it. You're kind of feeling like you don't want to offend anybody. If those things are coming up, it's worth working on, because I really think that you should be able to say anything to anybody, but it's how you say it that needs to be examined. And also that I think it's really important to check in with yourself to see what's going on for you, and to really read the signals of your triggers or things that are making you feel uncomfortable, and to get the message of what is it that's making me feel uncomfortable, how can I address it, and how can I ask for what I need. So that's my message to you today on Wednesday. Please comment below if you related to any of this, if any of this rings a bell for you. And I'll be talking more about codependency and how to have healthy relationships in the next few weeks. So look forward to talking more then. If you want me to talk about any other subjects, let me know. If you have a scenario that you haven't been able to tackle and you want me to mention it in one of these videos, don't hesitate to include that or message me privately. I'd love to give you some tips and things that are going to help you right away with things that you're working on. Okay, take care and have a good week. Bye for now.